All right, let's just jump right in. When you think of engine trouble in a small plane, what's the first thing that pops into your head? I bet it's a scene from a movie, right? You've got the sputtering engine, the propeller grinding to a halt, and then this dramatic, deafening silence as the plane starts to fall. It's a super powerful image, for sure, but how much of that is actually real?
So let's really think about it. If you're the one in the pilot's seat, what are the actual signs that your engine has just died? What do you hear? What do you feel? The answer is, well, it's surprisingly subtle, and confusing that Hollywood myth with reality can be incredibly, incredibly dangerous.
And this really gets to the heart of it. This quote is from a flight instructor, Seth Lake, and he's calling out one of the biggest myths in aviation. He says he just doesn't buy that the plane gets quiet. So you know what he did? He actually put it to the test, and what he found is pretty mind-blowing.
Okay, so first things first, we're going to tackle this whole sound of silence idea head-on. Let's really look at what happens when an engine fails, or maybe more accurately, what doesn't happen.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Check out this data. Seth Lake literally took a decibel meter up in a plane. So at a full power climb, it's clocking in at 89 decibels. At cruise, it's about 85. But here's the kicker. With the engine completely cut off, totally dead, it was still reading 84 decibels. That's a 1 decibel difference from cruise. You can barely even perceive that. So no, the plane does not go silent, not even close.
So, why isn't it silent? Well, it's because the propeller doesn't just stop spinning. As the plane glides, the air rushing past keeps pushing the blades, making the prop spin around and around. It's a thing called windmilling. Think of it like a pinwheel in the wind. And since that propeller is still turning, it's keeping all the engine's internal parts moving too.
And this right here, this is the real danger. Because that engine is windmilling, a pilot's instruments are essentially lying to them. You look down, and the RPM gauge shows the engine is turning. The manifold pressure gauge, it still moves when you touch the throttle. Your alternator might even still be producing electricity. It is a total deception. The only clear, unambiguous sign of a dead engine is that your exhaust gas temperature, or EGT, will drop all the way to zero. That's it.
So if a total engine failure is this deceptively quiet thing, what about a partial failure? What does that feel like? Well, that brings us to the second major danger, which is a completely different kind of problem, but just as serious.
This quote, it's just so raw and in the moment. It's from a pilot at Lou Dick's Aviation, and it perfectly captures this other kind of problem. It's not silence he's reacting to, it's a shudder, a vibration. The engine isn't dead, not at all, but something is definitely not right.
So in this situation, the pilots were feeling this continuous vibration, this shudder. They described it as feeling like something was off balance. Now, the engine was still making power, they were able to hold their altitude, but that shaking just wouldn't quit. It wasn't a total failure, but it was a massive red flag.
And this is the part that really matters, the decision they made. They didn't try to push through it. They immediately got on the radio, told air traffic control what was happening, turned the plane around, and made a precautionary landing. They knew, right away, that even with the engine still running, their flight was over.
And that's the real danger of what we call engine roughness. You've still got partial power, but that can lead to total confusion. The pilot is sitting there trying to figure out just how bad is this really?
So what is engine roughness technically? Well, it just means the engine's still running, but it's not running smoothly. You'll feel those vibrations, maybe hear a kind of stumbling sound. It can be caused by all sorts of things: fouled spark plugs, carburetor icing, a problem with the magnetos. The engine isn't dead, but it's definitely sick.
Okay, so we've looked at two totally different scenarios, right? We have the deceptively quiet total engine failure, and then we have the shaky, vibrating, rough engine. Let's put them side by side and really break down the differences.
This pretty much sums it all up. On one side, you've got engine roughness. You have some power, you can probably hold your altitude, and your job is to start troubleshooting and plan for a precautionary landing. But on the other side, engine failure. You have zero power. You cannot hold altitude, and your only job is immediate emergency action to glide down to a forced landing. The difference is, quite literally, night and day.
So why does all this matter so much? Why is this distinction so critical? Because if you make the wrong call, especially when you're dealing with a silent engine failure, you could find yourself with just seconds to react before the plane stalls.
And this is that trap. Imagine you're on a long descent, power set low. Somewhere along the way, the engine starves for fuel and just
quits. Quietly. You don't even notice. Then you get to the bottom, you go to level off, you push the throttle forward, the instrument needles move, everything looks like it's responding, but nothing happens. There's no power, and your airspeed just starts to vanish. It bleeds off so fast that before you even know what's happening, you're entering a stall.
And that brings us to these two completely different sets of actions, these two mindsets. With engine roughness, you start troubleshooting. Check the mixture, check the magnetos, maybe some carb heat. You find the nearest airport, and you plan a safe-powered landing. With a total engine failure, there's no time for any of that. Your number one job is to fly the airplane. You immediately pitch for your best glide speed, and you pick a spot on the ground, because that's where you're going, one way or another.
So we have to end with this question. Knowing that a dead engine isn't loud and a rough engine isn't dead, the difference really just comes down to very subtle cues and how you interpret them. In that moment of quiet confusion or that unnerving vibration, making the right call isn't just about following a checklist, it's about survival.